good, but you wear your clothes pretty full.
I like money more. Come on, we'll bet 10,000.
No, I got dinner. I'm not a betting man.
Oh, see that? You just say things, but you won't put your money where your mouth is.
I'm not a bet. I don't bet on anything. I don't bet on horses. I don't play the lottery. I don't play bingo.
You run your mouth, but you don't put your money where your mouth is. You said you make more than the top 4 people at TAM.
I said, I bet you I do.
Hi, I'm Rick Gilmour.
Gilmour wants to bet you 10,000.
I don't want to bet 10,000. I'm trying to buy a house, and I'm not throwing my money around on bets.
Yeah, he doesn't want to throw his money around, but I'll bet you dinner.
Who's the top 4 people you're talking about, Mike?
Well, okay, he said the top 4 personalities at TAM, right?
That means you?
That means me, Rush, Dr. Laura, and Bill.
No. I said.
You're wrong.
No, I said the top 4 people here at WTAM.
More money than Rick Gilmour.
I made more money than Rick Gilmour did last year on Friday. Now, that's nothing against Rick Gilmour. I mean, I like Rick Gilmour.
Certificate for dinner.
How do you know how much money I make?
Well, I don't know how much money you make.
Personalities at TAM.
I said behind the microphone here.
Yeah, you said the top 4 people on the microphone at TAM.
Do you have nothing else in life to worry about?
You're lucky if you make more than our general manager.
You're a sorry son of a bitch, ain't you?
Hi.
I love guys that run their mouth. I love guys like you.
I'll tell you what, you want to get the 4 top guys behind the microphone here, and I'll put my 1099 up against them. That's what I said, and that's what I meant.
I got you on a technicality because Rush makes $15 million a year.
Yeah, I didn't make that last year.
Okay, well, then you lose.
No, I said the top 4 guys behind the microphone here.
Well, where the hell?
He's in Florida. He's in Florida.
Well, what's the difference? He's on TAM.
I said right here, the J-Bo doesn't do anything for Rush Limbaugh.
And I still might take you up on that bet.
Well, you would probably lose that bet.
Well, I don't know.
Hi.
If I did lose that bet, there's more suckers out there than I thought.
Did I ever introduce you to my friend? His name is Rick Gilmour.
Yeah.
We're dating.
You know what?
Yeah, I'm a cheap date.
You should date.
He is.
Hey, I'm going. Hey, he hung up first. Mike Trivisonno hanging it in my ear. He's touchy.
He needs to get a life. He's got to have something else to worry about.
He's got a life. He's here all the time.
That little old David Allen. What does he care what I make?
He's here all the time. He works 7 days a week sometimes.
See, I would have thought he would have liked the meal a lot better, because I don't know if you've seen him lately, but he's not a small man. He's not svelte.
Whoever said no man is an island hasn't seen Mike Trivisonno lately.
That's right. Okay.
All right. How about this? You want to play the intro music again, Rob? You want to start the whole show over? Want to play the intro music again, Rob, and start the whole thing over?
Maybe he's jealous.
Turn off David's mic. He's leaving now. He's going away. We'll start the music. Dr. Seuss goes to Floriduh. Phone number here, 578-1100 in the 216 area code, toll free. Is currently occupied. 888-723-WTAM. Can we count them with our nose? Can we count them with our toes? Should we count them with a band? Should we count them all by hand? If I do not like the count, I will simply throw them out. I will not let this vote count stand. I do not like them, Gore I am. Can we change these numbers here? Can we change them? Calm my fears? What do you mean W is 1? This is not fair. It's not fun. Let's count them upside down this time. Let's count until the state is mine. I do not let this vote count stand. I do not like it, Gore I am. I'm really ticked. I'm in a snit. You have not heard the last of it. I'll count the ballots one by one and hold each one up to the sun. I'll count, recount, and count some more. You'll grow to hate this little chore. I will not, cannot let this vote stand. I do not like it, Al Gore I am. I won't leave office. I'm staying here. I've glued my desk chair to my rear. Tipper, Hillary, and Bubba, too, all telling me what I should do. We find the Electoral College vile. Recount the votes until I smile. We do not want this vote to stand. We do not like it, Gore I am. How shall we count this ballot box? Let's count it staining in our socks. Shall we count this one in a tree? And who shall count it, you or me? We cannot count enough. We must not stop. We must be tough. I do not want this vote to stand. I do not like it, Gore I am. I've counted till my fingers bleed and still can't fulfill my counting need. I'll count the tiles on the floor. I'll count and count and count some more. And I will not say that I am done until the counting says I've won. I will not let this vote count stand. I do not like it, Gore I am. What's that? What? What are you trying to say? You think the current count should stay? You do not like my counting scheme. It makes you tense, gives you bad dreams. Foolish people, you're wrong, you'll see. Your only care should be for me. I will not let this vote count stand. I do not like it. And Al Gore, I am. Well, nothing new until tomorrow. We won't find out. What's interesting is that some people are, I guess, getting sick and tired of the process. I thought it was rather fascinating. But another email said, Gilly, I'm so sick and tired of all that's going on in this election. Everyone I talk to says they are too and will never vote again. Really? Now here I thought it would have the opposite effect, didn't you? Here I thought it was so close. And obviously, if there's usually a larger turnout one way or another, I guess, there's usually not 900 votes difference. I just thought everybody would be out voting the next time. And here this woman says that she's sick and tired of it, and all her friends are too, and they're never going to vote again. It seems the judges and the high-priced attorneys will decide the final outcome of the election. Can you imagine what this election has cost so far? I'm tired of hearing the media say the election is an education in democracy. It is a disgrace, and the people I talk to are all fed up. Are you fed up? Can you wait? Could you wait until January? It may take that long. It may be decided by the House. It may be decided tomorrow. It drags us along, doesn't it? Certainly keeps us fascinated and interested. I sat down yesterday and presented, 5 different ideas, and you took it wherever you wanted to. No matter how I tried to drag it in one direction or another, I talked about the Hegel conspiracy theory. My board operator, Rob Hegel, who thinks that the government cannot be trusted. I said my opinion was that I thought it was just being dragged out for ratings and to make more money. Drag it out forever and sell magazines and newspapers like crazy. Because what other news is there going on right now? Pro football, college football, Clinton in Vietnam. Of course, Clinton says that may not be his last trip. He might go to North Korea. Really? Why don't you just go roll around in the mud with the Red Chinese, too? Why don't you go break bread with the Russians and just have a good old time going to all these commie places all over the world? You know what he wants? And that's the one thing I can say is, wahoo! In 2 months, Billy Bob's out of here. Bubba's gone. He wants the history books to say, and a footnote to the Vietnam War, the first U.S. president to visit Vietnam was Bill Clinton in the year 2000, President Clinton. And it won't say anything about BJs. It won't say anything about sexual peccadillos of the president's wee-wee. Or it'll say, and the first U.S. president to visit North Korea and forever was Bill Clinton, or the first U.S. president to do this and that. That's what he wants, is just to try and build some sort of a legacy. And you know, Vicky was the one who sent me the one email that said that she was sick and tired of this whole election process. Sick and tired. Yeah, and Bill Clinton, he didn't want to go to Vietnam the first time. They could have asked him. The government would have given him a free ride over there on a 52. And now he gets to ride on a 47. Stamped Air Force One on the side. Have his limousine shipped in, too. You know what, Vicky? If nothing else, Bubba will be out of here. And whoever we get to replace Bubba in the White House will probably stay true to his wife. But there's too much slime on the Clinton-mobile, with Al Gore hanging onto the back bumper. If he falls off and goes from Blair House to the White House, he's still covered in some slime from the Clinton-mobile. Channel 3 weather from Marshall McPeak. Tonight, cloudy, flurries, low 29. Tomorrow, lake effect snow to the east, 4 inches. On the west side, just a little bit of a flurry here and there with a high of 36. And, is this right? Is it currently 37 degrees? It felt colder than that outside. Maybe it's just, that means the high tomorrow will be 1 degree less than it is right now. Rob's licking his finger, sticking it in the air, and he says, yes, that's true. What do I know? Here I thought that it was going to be winter forever, but I don't know. We can ask Al Gore. What do you think?
One of the criteria that I think is important is but very unclear. I think we should have come in much quicker.
I guess. Okay. Well, whatever you say. Well, let's take some phone calls. Like I say, it doesn't matter what direction I lead it. Somebody's always got some question about swinging chads or hanging chads or something like that. Ricky in Orville, you're on the air.
Hey, Rick.
Yeah. You got a great name.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
So do you.
Thanks.
I just want to let you know, I'm about 18 years old, and...
what do you mean about?
Well, okay, yeah, I am 18 years old.
Okay.
And I love your show.
Well, thank you.
Actually, my dad called in last night, and I'm calling in today just to talk about the election and how earlier you said everybody's sick and tired of our system. I'm not necessarily sick and tired of our system, but I'm sick and tired of the American mentality that, if you have a problem, let's just use litigation. There's a point when we just got to look at it and say, it's over, it's done, and no more to it. And also, how does a 300-vote difference statewide substantiate a recount in a county where Gore won by a huge margin? It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, just like you said about bringing in the lawyers. I mean, once Gore brings in his lawyers, well, now Bush has no choice but to bring in his lawyers. Because have you ever gone to court for something and they say, would you like an attorney? And you say no, and the judge says, are you sure? Are you certain you do not want an attorney? Because obviously, the prosecutor in court is an attorney. Right?
Yeah.
And if you're up against attorneys and you don't know all the legal wranglings, I mean, I've known people that have lost cases, and I've known people that have, let's say, for example, my fiance owes some money for somebody trashed an apartment that a guy lived in, and I don't know how her name was attached to it, but she ended up in court. Well, she ended up winning the case, but now there's collection agencies that have been hounding her for about 4 or 5 years now saying they want the money. How the hell did that happen? Now, the only way you're going to be able to fix that is to either have paperwork from the court that says, well, no, wait a minute, see, I was proved innocent in this case, or you're going to have to go out and hire an attorney, right, to fight the collection agency, because if you go to court without a lawyer, well, they're going to go to court with a lawyer. And that's the process, and that's why everybody says, oh, my God, what about all these lawyers? Well, if there's lawyers on one side, you better have lawyers on the other, or you're probably going to lose.
Oh, yeah.
And I think the lawyers know that. I mean, obviously, can you imagine a convention of lawyers, Ricky?
Oh.
I mean, can you imagine judges and lawyers, and they all golf together, and they all go out to dinner and drinks together, and there could be a prosecuting attorney on one side, or there could be a defense attorney and a DA going out after a case, and then they put everything behind them. They're still buddies. They're still in that upper echelon, in that club of lawyers.
As long as they're making money.
Well, that's right, and they make a lot of money. And I mean, they have to go to school for a long time, so they deserve to make a lot of money. But, yeah, you're right. When everything gets dragged into the courts, now the people look at it and go, wait a minute. We went all on our own, right? All on our own on election day and voted. There were no lawyers involved. We didn't have to worry about that. And now there's lawyers telling me how my vote is going to count. That's how they perceive it.
Yeah.
When in actuality, they're not doing that. What they're saying is, let's make sure that your vote did get counted properly. But like the Dr. Seuss goes to Floriduh, well, I think Al Gore wants to keep recounting. And consider this scenario. How about this? Let's say the votes in Florida do get certified, and George Bush is proclaimed the next president because he's taken Florida, but the manual recounts continue. Now, after the certification process, what if they find out that actually Al Gore did win Florida and would have been the next president, but George Bush has already been selected as president? Now, when do the riots start?
Oh, it'll be bad. That ruins the legitimacy of the presidency for Bush.
Did you vote?
Yes, I did.
Does this process make you more likely to want to vote in the future or less likely?
More likely.
That's what I thought.
I want to make sure. I think this proves that your vote does count.
I think you're absolutely right, and I appreciate the phone call. Now, Rob's looking at me, my board operator, like, no, this proves your vote doesn't count. And he thinks this is all decided in dark boiler rooms with lawyers sitting around over finger sandwiches. It's just damned close. Right? It's just really damned close. We have a penchant and a tendency in this country that every time something is close, there's a conspiracy behind it. Who was the shooter on the grassy knoll? Was it possible that Lee Harvey Oswald could have actually fired off 3 shots with a bolt-action Italian rifle that quickly? Yes, I think it was. Now, the problem is, And this is why people dream up conspiracy theories, because maybe, well, how come we don't get to find out what the Warren Commission said until everybody involved is dead? That's what I want to know. That's why people dream up these theories, because they want to know what's going on right now. Right, Al Gore?
I got some of the details wrong.
You did?
And I'm sorry about that.
Oh.
And promise you that.
And hard.
Try not to. And hard.
Okay. I'll take your word for it. Hi, Rich. You're on the big one.
Oh, hi, Gil. My first comment was going to say, if I hear the words "will of the people" one more time, I'm going to vomit. I hear these morons on the radio, on the TV, usually some fat dumb broad, saying the will of the people says Gore should be president, and I'm saying, who elected you, God?
What I thought was interesting was when you see these people out there protesting with their signs, and I thought, really, get a life, because once the process is involved in the courts, really, us as individuals have little to say about it.
Yeah, it's true.
Unless we have a revolution.
Well, they better not start one, because I don't think they can handle a gun right. But the other thing I want to make a comment is that I finally saw Clinton got to Vietnam. 25 years late, but what the hell?
Yeah, he was a little late. In fact, and here, listen for this. This was something interesting. Spread the word. Effective immediately, all veterans and Americans for Bush should begin to fly the American flag upside down in front of homes at rallies and on cars. This is a traditional symbol that all is not right. It is not disrespectful of old glory, but a time-honored signal in times when a position is under assault. Please continue to fly the flag in that position until further notice, even if it takes 4 years. To all veterans and citizens for Bush, a Democratic assault on the military absentee ballots is underway in Florida to disenfranchise American military personnel and add another element of corruption into the presidential election centered in Florida. A lawsuit in Seminole County on 18 November seeks to throw out 15,000 absentee ballots, 10,000 of which were filed for Bush. Palm Beach and Broward counties are seeking to discard pro-Bush absentee ballots using arbitrary guidelines they have rejected as disqualifying pro-Gore votes. Democratic operatives are believed to have stuffed the Palm Beach ballots using stolen vote-o-matic machines in favor of Gore, and perhaps double-punched 19,000 Bush votes in Palm Beach and Broward to invalidate them, then claim they were Gore votes that were disqualified. Corruption should not decide this election, and that's what's happening, that's what's taking place. The tallies on Election Day were equalized and balanced on Election Day across the nation when Bush won the election. The process in progress now in 3 to 4 counties in Florida is an attempt to extend the corruption that failed to carry the day on 7 November. You can show your disgust with what is happening to our nation by flying the American flag upside down. I repeat, this is not disrespectful to the flag, but is a time-honored signal that all is not right. If ever there was a time for this signal, it is now. From Commander Chip Beck, U.S. Navy retired. And he's at a website, www.vetsforbush.net. This is a grassroots decision by veterans, and I think it's not a bad one. If you're on the line, you're going to have to wait until after the news, because I see no sense in putting anyone on and giving them only, what, 40 seconds, 30 seconds. That's not worth your wait. So hold on tight. I only have 2 lines open at 578-1100. You'll want to jump in quickly, because the space does get tight around here.
I want some space, goddammit. Back. Now let's get away from the gate. I'm telling you, get back now.
If you'd like to email me, you may do so. I'm going off to the newsroom to check that now. That's Gilly@WTAM.com. Please, try not to make them too lengthy. If you'd like something read on the air, if it's pertinent to the program, I'll do it if it's pertinent. But if it's 2 pages, 3 pages long, we do not have time for that around here. Now, here's Cliff Bakley.
Cleveland's only news radio. Your official weather station. The home of the Indians, Cavaliers, and Browns fans. This is the big one. Now, continuing coverage on News Radio, WTAM 1100, Cleveland.
All is set for tomorrow's Florida Supreme Court hearing on the hand recounts. Good evening, I'm Cliff Bakley, and this is the 9:30 report on News Radio WTAM 1100. Details coming up. Channel 3 weather, here's Marshall McPeak.
Look for some flurries tonight, especially east, the low 29.
Currently 37 degrees, the wind chill 19 at your official weather station, News Radio, WTAM 1100. Democrats are asking Florida's High Court to consider what voters really intended when they punched ballots in the state's disputed presidential election. By contrast, lawyers for George W. Bush are asking the court to disregard recounts by hand. Team coverage, ABC's Tim Shell.
In legal papers filed with the court Sunday afternoon, lawyers for George Bush argue that the manual recounts should not be included in the final tally because the deadline for accepting them has already passed. The law requires recounts be certified and submitted to the Secretary of State within 7 days of an election. The Bush lawyers argue the county should have hired enough workers to get it done on time.
You're now able to go west on I-480 past Graydon Road. The bridge span reopened this afternoon. ODOT's Billy Bachman says temporary repairs have been made, allowing the traffic.
Right now they have the carrier beam in place in the high-speed lane. What that does is takes the weight, all the load off of the critical area so that we can maintain traffic on the bridge while we go in and do the repair.
An overnight fire at a Marriott hotel in Vail, Colorado caused an estimated $20 million damage. No hotel guests were reported injured. Tennessee quarterback Steve McNair was intercepted 3 times, lost 2 fumbles as the Titans coughed up the ball on 7 of their 9 first possessions. But the Browns couldn't move the ball and lost 24-10. I'm Cliff Bakley on Cleveland's only news radio, WTAM 1100.
Continuing coverage coming up at the top of the hour. Bulletins at 1. News Radio, WTAM 1100.
I'll never forget this Thanksgiving, that's for...
Live music from the Armstrong Bearcat Band. So you're encouraged to drop off a coat or a cash donation outside Gridiron Square at Cleveland Browns Stadium. Come on, give $15 or more, couldn't you? In exchange for a free turkey courtesy of Minuteman Staffing. WTAM Minuteman Staffing and the Cleveland Browns are committed to helping keep Cleveland's children warm this winter. If you already have a holiday turkey, bring a coat or a cash donation anyway, and Minuteman Staffing will donate the turkey in your name to Hunger Network of Greater Cleveland. How's that? That should be a good time had by all. That's the 21st. 1,100 free turkeys. Doing our part to try and help out. Please, do yours. Richard in Independence, you're on the big one.
Yeah, hi, Rick. How you doing tonight?
Great.
Hey, I really like that Dr. Seuss. That was kind of clever.
In fact, I had an email from someone who said, could you please forward that to me? Well, I'd prefer if you just keep it tuned right here and tape record it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. But, boy, I'll tell you, I don't know if you remember, but when you were broadcasting from the driving range down in Valley View, you were gracious enough. You actually had me on there for a little while, and you and I were discussing how, we used to be very liberal, and now I would consider myself, I guess, a libertarian. And, this whole thing, it's just, I guess this is just the proof that I need. I did vote for Bush. But I'll tell you, I talked to a lot of people. Our company's based in Cleveland, but we are nationwide. And I talked to a lot of people that voted for Gore, and also a lot of people that were Nader supporters that ended up voting for Gore. And I'll tell you, these people, a lot of the independents or swing voters that voted for Gore will just never vote Democrat again. They're just sickened by this whole process.
I'm not real thrilled about the whole idea that there was the discrepancies in the votes, and I don't like the idea of any of the absentee ballots being thrown out. David Allen was asking me, the man who does the program on Sundays from 7 to 9, Financial Strategies, and he said, oh, if you're on an aircraft carrier, how can you postmark a letter? I said, well, I assume if they have a hospital, they have a post office.
Well, actually, they had a little blurb in that in the Plain Dealer this morning. There is a federal law which says it doesn't have to be postmarked because of what you just said.
And it shouldn't have to be postmarked. These people are they're in the service of our country, and if anyone's votes should count more than anyone else's, it should be theirs.
I don't know. I'll tell you, this whole thing is just, beyond the bizarre. I guess truth is stranger than fiction. Last week, I was listening to your show last Sunday, and I was watching that return to honor about the Vietnamese POWs. And, I'm watching footage of John McCain. He's laying there, in the Hanoi Hilton.
Right.
And, then this thing with Clinton visiting, and then Gore. You know, how he, you know, supposedly volunteered for the service, and he basically did that to help out his father's campaign, and I guess he had a bodyguard in this. But the whole thing is, it's just beyond the beyond. I just don't know where we're going anymore. And, you know, I'm so involved with this thing now that I'm definitely going to vote again. And, boy, if they let me vote 2 or 3 times, I'll even do that, you know.
Well, you have to move to Milwaukee to do that, I think.
Well, that Milwaukee thing, that's a whole other issue. And, you know, just the Republicans, they just seem to be, you know, they play by the rules. They expect other people to do that. And, boy, I just see Bush just, you know, he's just getting railroaded on this thing. And, you know, even to the point where the Republicans now are, you know, saying, well, if Bush is elected, boy, you know, he's got to really give some concessions. And, you know, hey, there goes the 5% tax cut. You know, they're already, you know, basically conceding that from what I've heard this morning. And, you know, I don't know, Rick. The whole thing's bizarre. And
well, like the rallying cry I heard yesterday from one of the callers that said, don't give up the ship we were discussing. Look at it this way. Well, if Al Gore gets in, because whoever gets in, this next 4 years is probably going to be plagued with a less than stellar economy, because it really has nothing to do at all with of course, the president. It has to do with Alan Greenspan and the Fed. So we've already seen them bumping the interest points here, bump.
Right.
And it's a buyer's market for cars and houses. Right. It's not a seller's market. And so whoever gets this next presidency is probably going to be a one-termer. But if Al Gore keeps whining and whining, like he comes off looking as a whiner at this point, that he will not be a shoo-in for the nomination in 2004. But I thought, well, that doesn't mean that we who voted for Bush should give up at this point. As far as I look at it, I don't care if it's 900 votes. 900 votes is 900 votes. That's still a victory.
Well, the thing is, you know, you guys have the map up on your website, the county-to-county map.
Right.
And, you know, a lot of these states that Bush just carried, you know, dramatically, you know, 67 to 23 or whatever, hey, it's not his fault they're small states. You know, I mean, just think if it was a bigger state, it's a Republican state, it's a more conservative state. Hey, it just happens to be, you know, Utah, you know, rather than California. But
hey, when I've done national broadcasts, they love me in Utah.
I believe it.
I don't know why, though, because I wasn't even talking politics. Maybe there was just something I was saying that rang true with people that were thinking that they were a little more conservative.
I just think that most people out there are just common sense people. And when they see, again, you know, the litigation and everything else, and again, you know, you're a common sense guy, and I think that's, you know, what a lot of people are just looking for out there. And you know, maybe somebody like a McCain, you know, had he won the nomination, hey, you know, maybe he would have rolled over. You know, who knows? But
I don't know.
You know, this whole thing is just too bizarre. And
I'm waiting. I'm not tired of the process.
Well, it's fascinating. It really is. Number one, we are getting a great education, you know, on how this whole voting procedure works.
You know what? And you know what it is too. And I gotta move on.
Right.
Is that the idea that your vote, in my mind, does count? Appreciate you checking in from the lovely city of Independence. You ever been out to Independence? You ever seen their city hall? It's Independence Hall. It looks just like the one in Philadelphia, Philadelphia, just for your info, FYI. Hi, Jesse, you're on the air.
Yeah, how you doing?
Okay.
Well, you know, there's a couple of things, like Gore walking around talking about his moral authority because, you know, he got the popular vote. But, you know
how much of the popular vote he got?
Like 300,000?
0.2%.
Yeah. I mean, what kind of, you know...
38.3 to 38.1.
Yeah. I mean, he's walking around like, you know, he won in a popular vote of a landslide or something.
No, it was nowhere near a landslide. And as far as I was concerned, 0.2% is nothing. However, I guess if we look at the figures and how many people voted, what's the percentage that George W. Bush will take Florida by? And it could be 0.2% as well. But it doesn't matter. Did you ever hear the story I told about the mayor in Fairview?
Yeah.
The mayor in Fairview, I supported his campaign, and on election day, I didn't vote. And I asked my mother, did you vote? And she said, no, she didn't vote either. And it turns out that the mayor lost by 1 vote, whereas had we both voted, he would have won by 1 vote. And that, to me, was a great civics lesson, that you should not ignore the fact that your vote does count, and I think we've proven it this time.
Yeah, I mean, he you know, walking around saying that was making me sick. The other thing, which I don't really understand, maybe you heard this news story, it's been run on 1100 a couple of times. It's about Clinton being in Vietnam, and he cut short his visits and his impatience showed, and he said he wanted to go home to find out, you know, who won the presidency.
Well, that's kind of dumb.
I mean,
that's what,
that story.
You know, you can watch CNN in Iraq.
Yeah.
I mean, there's more people find out what's going on all around the world by watching television and listening to the radio and listening to us on the internet and all that sort of thing.
But that story didn't make any sense. He was impatient to leave the country. He would go to wherever he went.
Maybe the food didn't agree with him.
And that was a serious story. You know, I'm thinking maybe there's some comedy to it, but, you know, I just don't know. I don't know if you heard that story.
No, I just...
check your news department. They've been running it all day.
Yeah, I've heard it. I just think it's ludicrous. I think it's silly. I don't understand. I want to cut things short so I can go back home. Well, maybe the food in Vietnam has the same effect on the president as drinking water in Mexico. I'm not sure. If you're on the line, be patient. I'll get to you.
The best of Mike Trivisonno.
Just spread the legs open and stuff it in.
Now available on compact disc at Best Buy.
Something you say on Thanksgiving.
From WTAM 1100.
Cupid's hit the mark. In fact, someone called me, left a voicemail for me at the station and said I should go out and get Alice Cooper's Elected. Remember that song? I want to be elected. And I think it's on Greatest Hits. I'm not sure. I'll check it out. I'm going to the library and I'll take a look around. I want to give you your Channel 3 weather from Marshall McPeak. Overnight tonight, some flurries, late low of 29. Tomorrow, if you live on the east side, you could get a couple, 3 inches of snow, maybe 4. On the west side, we just get a little bit of a dusting. 36 for a high, currently 37 degrees in Cleveland, 37. Rick in North Royalton, talk to me.
Hey, Rick, how you doing this evening?
Great.
Hey, listen.
I'm disturbed, of course, by the process. I'm still waiting.
Well, I'm waiting, too. I'm waiting, but the longer I wait, the less confident I am in the system and the more absolute fraud that's going on.
Do you really think that, do you think that Al Gore is seriously going to steal this election?
He's trying his best, I think. I think if we work hard, we can stop it. I wanted to address this military situation I talked to you about the other day. Got some further information. I've had some further communications with the one of the actual, a Marine that's aboard the flotilla there in the Gulf.
This is about the absentee ballots?
Yeah. I was at my old battalion, which is 3rd Battalion, 1st Marines, had a reunion this summer from the 9th through the 12th of August.
Hoorah!
And just so happens that the current 3rd Battalion, 1st Marines that are serving now helped us out with the reunion, and they actually came to our reunion and participated. And it was kind of a lineage thing. As coincidence would have it, the day after our reunion, they shipped out aboard the 3 vessels, the Tarawa, the Anchorage, and I believe the Duluth. And we actually went down to the pier and saw them off at the 38th Street Pier in San Diego. And I've been in email contact with them. And they have a website. It's, if I can remember it or if I can get it here, it's, well, I'll give it to you in a second. But anyway.
Or email it to me.
Okay. Anyway, point being is that I've got some, inside information.
Inside poop.
And basically what's happened from everything I can get indicated is that and the thing that's not being talked about, the thing that's being talked about is the ballots in Florida now that they're trying to suppress after the election.
Right.
But one of the more poignant things is there's a systematic suppression that went on to deny the ballots from even getting there in the first place. This individual has checked with other individuals on his particular ship, which is one of 3. And it seems to be that there's a large number of military service personnel who requested ballots in this particular flotilla, and I would extrapolate this all over the service because I've heard of other things that did not get their ballots, whereas in previous years they've always gotten their ballots.
Well, of course, we know that Governor Bush spent a lot more money than Al Gore did to try and get a hold of the servicemen and try and get these overseas and absentee ballots and try and get the vote out. And it would not be beyond comprehension that you would think that Al Gore, instead of spending a lot of money on that, might have spent a lot of money or time or had other people spend money and or time on trying to suppress those ballots, because everyone knows that obviously most military people were going to vote for Bush.
Well, the military has a very low opinion of the current administration. I also have
I wonder why.
A retired colonel who just recently retired that emailed me, and he actually lives in Broward County. And he has gotten some information from other people in the military that he knows about this worldwide systematic suppression operation. And it's not just the Marines in the Gulf. It's service people in all branches all over that were not gotten their ballots to in the appropriate time, manner, fashion. Also, they're thinking that maybe when they sent them back or sent them to them, they're supposed to send them first class. They sent them fourth class, and vice versa, coming back. They also told me that in Florida, that from what he's understood, some of the military ballots were soaking wet, and we don't know how that happened.
They fell off the ship.
Yeah, well, anyway, the point being is this coupled with this whole nightmare scenario of tape being over the bush chads, of people eating chads. I read that on the internet. They found a little pile of chads laying on the table. They were supposed to collect for evidence, that...
and the Democrats were eating chads.
The guy wet his finger on it and stuck the little pile to his finger and ate them. So
I thought that was sugar.
So you get all this constant drumbeat of information about all these irregularities. And then one has to conclude, even if you give this thing the benefit of the doubt and you try to detach yourself emotionally from it, I mean, anybody with any ounce of objectivity has got to come up and say that this thing is really flawed and prone to hijinks and actual fraud. I mean, people are people. They're counting. They're pulling for their own guy. So, I mean, how are we to have any credit or credibility in the outcome of what this hand count is? I just saw on television about a half hour ago that for the second or third time, I think it's Palm or Dade or Broward County, one of the three, has just now revised what constitutes a proper vote.
Oh, I know. It's crazy.
Count dimples now.
Well, Rick, I'll tell you, you're no stranger to Gilly at WTAM.com. Keep me apprised of any new information, and I will relate it to the listening public.
Check your email.
Thank you. All right, yep. Well, Rick emails me a lot of stuff. I mean, sometimes it's like, good God, 10 emails now, I understand, to try and keep them as concise as possible, because to relate all this information, it gets a little tough when you got 25 pages of things to read. It takes me, literally, sometimes 25 minutes, a half an hour to read and pull all these emails off. I come in and good Lord, the power of saying WTAM 1100 when I say Gilly at WTAM.com. Boom, now the thing's all full up. Well, here, listen to this. If one thing we can look forward to, in 2 months, Bubba's gone.
Clinton went out looking for a piece of tail. Clinton went out, he was looking for a piece of tail. He found an intern who was blown just like a gale. You got a big chump who's a lion male. You got a big chump who's a lion male. He likes to hump, testify, and well, you got a big chump who's a lion male. You got a big chump who's a lion male today. Bubba says that woman he did not nail. Bubba says that woman he did not nail. How can you believe a man who say he don't nail? Clinton's lying, he might end up in jail. If Clinton's lying, he'll spend the night in jail. He can always ask the Chinese to post his bail. Well, you got a big chump who's a lion male. You got a big chump who's a lion male. He likes to hump, testify, and well, you got a big chump who's a lion male. You got a big chump who's a lion male today. Well, you got a big chump who's a lion male. You got a big chump who's a lion male. He likes to hump, testify, and well, you got a big chump who's a lion male. You got a big chump who's a lion male today. You got a big chump who's a lion male. You got a big chump.
Cleveland's only news radio. Your official weather station. The home of the Indians, Cavaliers, and Browns fans. This is the big one. Now, continuing coverage on News Radio, WTAM 1100, Cleveland.
A 2-hour hearing tomorrow before the Florida Supreme Court that may decide the presidential election. Good evening. I'm Cliff Bakley. This is the 10 o'clock report on News Radio WTAM 1100. Details coming up. Channel 3 weather. Here's Marshall McPeak.
Flurries coming back into the forecast for tonight. The low down to 29.
Currently 37 degrees at your official weather station. News Radio WTAM 1100.
The 2000 vote. Our in-depth team coverage continues right now.
How would you feel if you were one of the people helping count Florida election ballots by hand, and over in the media you're hearing you can't be trusted? You're helping to actually distort how people voted. Those counters are barred from talking to the media about Republican accusations, but not their boss in Palm Beach County, Judge Charles Burton.
The spin coming out of that room by both parties is they're a bunch of idiots. It's a bunch of buffoons. It's a circus. And that hasn't been the case. You handle 500,000 ballots, some poor old lady drops one, big deal. You pick it up, everybody's there to watch it, nobody's stepping on it, and nothing's happening.
But uniformity is important, says Montana Governor Mark Roscoe, a Republican speaking for the Bush camp in Austin, Texas.
There is more definition and more procedural stability to a zoning hearing than what's going on here.
One of the questions Democrats will have at tomorrow's Florida Supreme Court hearing will be on what uniform standards, if any, these recounts should have. Chuck Siebertson, ABC News.
The good news tonight is that you'll be able to travel westbound on I-480 while repairs are made. Team coverage from our Levon Putney.
One driver slowly turned onto the 480 entrance ramp at Grayton, looked at the ODOT worker, and motioned as if to ask, is it open yet? Well, the worker answered yes. A big headache ends for those who usually take the 480 westbound just past Hopkins Airport. The left lane will remain closed while crews make permanent repairs to the bridge over Rocky River, but the other 3 lanes will lead drivers down their normal paths. Levon Putney, News Radio, WTAM 1100.
As many as 80 protesters gathered on Public Square this afternoon, but it had nothing to do with the scramble for the White House, Chads, or recounts. Allison Emerson, one of those who marched in opposition to U.S. funding for the School of the Americas, used to train military personnel from Latin American countries.
I'm here to show solidarity with the people of the church community in standing up against oppression in Central America.
And in Fort Benning, Georgia, the home of the school, cops arrested 1,700 protesters, including actor Martin Sheen, who had marched into the fort. We're learning more about the organization behind the attack on the USS Cole. ABC's Lauren Rogers has team coverage.
Sources close to the investigation say Yemeni authorities have detained 6 men believed to be key accomplices in the attack. One of them is reported to have told investigators he received his orders from a man in the United Arab Emirates. That man, he says, is an Arab veteran of the U.S.-backed guerrilla war to drive the Soviets out of Afghanistan.
An Iowa microbrewer reports that he's brewing a special batch of beer for election-weary patrons. ABC's Karen Chase has that story.
The flavor of the month at a brew pub in Cedar Rapids, Iowa is Hanging Chad Ale. Brewmaster Mike Snyder is brewing it in honor of the political controversy brewing over the presidential election. Chads are those little pieces of paper that fall out of a ballot when you vote. And they've become a big bone of contention in Florida, where officials have quarreled over whether they can count ballots with hanging chads, one that haven't fallen out completely. While Snyder says he's just having some fun with the election, he also half-seriously predicts the ale will be sold out before the president-elect is decided. Karen Chase, ABC News.
The AP says the Indians could announce tomorrow that they've signed outfielder Ellis Burks to a 3-year, $21 million deal. Channel 3 weather is next. It's 10:04 at News Radio WTAM 1100.
2020 sports. The Browns got 7 turnovers from Tennessee and still couldn't win. Eddie George rambled for 134 yards and 3 touchdowns. The Titans rallied to beat them 24-10. Another boatload of injuries for the Brownies. Dave Wollabaugh sprained his ankle. Dalen McCutcheon had a concussion. Aaron Shea hurt his hip. And Doug Peterson bruised his finger but would come back into the game. Just to make things interesting, Everett Lindsay decided to get thrown out. The CSU Vikings are off and running at 2-0. They beat Yale 80-70. Mark Schwab, News Radio WTAM 1100.
If you're looking for continuing coverage coming up at the bottom of the hour. Bulletins at 1. News Radio WTAM 1100.
I'm going to need a secretary just to check my emails. 578-1100 in the 216 area code. Toll free 888-723 WTAM.
The Rick Gilmore Show on News Radio WTAM 1100.
Emails coming in at Gilly at WTAM.com. The law in Florida says that this thing is supposed to be over last Tuesday, and that law is to prevent fraud. The quicker it gets done, the less time people have to screw things up. That part that scares me is they don't even care what the law says. Second thing that scares me is I think this is exactly what Hillary wanted. I'm afraid that she'll run in 2004 and that the woman that voted for Gore because of the kiss will vote for her because she's a female. Now, there was another very interesting one about the law about the military ballots. Military ballots from overseas are not required by U.S. code itself to have a postmark, yet this is the main argument for rejection by Democrat operatives in these counting venues. I'm livid. They are willingly and knowingly breaking the law that no uniformed absentee voter can be deprived of their constitutional rights in this fashion. Gore spits on the servicewomen and servicemen and yet wants to be their commander-in-chief? From the U.S. Code, Title 39, Postal Service, Chapter 4, Mail Matter, Chapter 34, Armed Services and Free Postage, Section 3406. Balloting materials, when the Uniformed and Overseas Citizens Absentee Voting Act says, A, balloting materials under the Uniformed and Overseas Citizens Absentee Voting Act, individually or in bulk, one shall be carried expeditiously and free of postage. Well, if there's no postage, then there's no postmark, right? Title 18, Crimes and Criminal Procedure, Part 1, Crimes, Chapter 29, Elections and Political Activities, Section 608. Absent uniformed service voters and overseas voters, A, whoever knowingly deprives or attempts to deprive any person of a right under the Uniformed and Overseas Citizens Absentee Voting Act shall be fined in accordance with this title or imprisoned not more than 5 years or both. I want those absentee votes counted. If you're counting and recounting, I want those votes counted. I want to find what the hell is going on here, Al Gore.
I got some of the details wrong.
I guess.
I'm sorry about that.
Well,
promise you that I will try not to, and hard.
Well, let's try to count those votes, and hard. Joe, you're on the air.
Hey, Rick, how you doing?
All right.
Yeah, you know, I got a couple of comments here. First off, you know, Gore has taken this thing so far, and the original plan that's under Florida law and everything, I think, should have been followed, and Gore should have just let the thing just flow and let it lie. And then when the final count was certified last week by the Secretary of State, he should have said, okay, that's it. But he's drawing this out so much. And, you know, I voted for Bush, but I wasn't a straight Republican voter. I declare myself Republican, but I didn't vote a straight Republican ticket. And I always try to, you know, think about who I think is the better person.
That's what I do.
And now, you know, I think he's totally thrown me off of Democrats completely. In the next election, I'm voting straight Republican. I don't care who's good and who's bad.
I think that's a bad idea.
Well,
you have to look at, let's look at local issues. I mean, sometimes there are folks that are running that you look and you say, well, gee, who's this person running against this person? I've never heard of them. Or you look and they've never had any political experience whatsoever, or they're just not qualified for the job. And you have to say, well, whether or not I like this person or whether or not they're a Democrat, they really are, or a Republican, they really are the qualified person. They should be voted for.
Yeah, there might be a couple of people. I mean,
the pipe fitter's been a pretty good sheriff in Cuyahoga County.
Dennis Kucinich is one that I'd probably still vote for. I mean, I voted for him, and in the last couple elections, you know, he's always been, you know, seemed to be a pretty reliable congressman.
Just don't let him be mayor of Cleveland again, for God's sake.
But
maybe he's older and wiser now, and things would be better. But I remember the city of Cleveland. I've lived here my entire.
Went bankrupt when he was mayor, right?
Almost, sort of default they called it. But yeah, I've lived in the city of Cleveland my entire life. Well, in the greater Cleveland area, and I've watched the city of Cleveland grow and change. And I'll tell you, I give George Voinovich, Senator Voinovich, a lot of credit for the turnaround that the city of Cleveland enjoyed. I also have to give Boss White some credit for that, obviously, for the turnaround that the city of Cleveland has enjoyed. The only problem I have with Boss White is his attitude. If he would just be a more likable...
Get along with the police.
Yeah, if he would just be a more likable guy. He goes out of his way to be king. And I just don't like that attitude. But other than that, the city is... I mean, people actually come to Cleveland now to vacation. I've talked to people, what are you doing here? Oh, they're on vacation. Well, I remember when I was nobody came to Cleveland unless they had relatives there to visit. They didn't.
I mean, I'm 23, but so I don't remember a whole lot. But I do remember the 80s, and it really wasn't much downtown. And you know, the last 10 years, it's really developed and really grown and exploded. But as far as this whole thing in Florida is concerned, I think you know, Gore, he's really leaving a bad taste in my mouth for pretty much the entire Democratic Party, because it's all the Democrats are joining up and agreeing with him, and you know, and joining his bandwagon here, and he's pulling out every little conceivable nook and cranny that he can find into the courts. And I just, you know, these laws were already put in there. They were already, you know, the law was that Tuesday it was supposed to be the Secretary of State is supposed to finalize the count, and that was the count.
Yeah, I know. And
that was the law. I mean, you're going to challenge a law that's already in the books? How can you do that?
Well, we'll find out tomorrow, won't we?
Yeah.
Joe,
it's frustrating.
I know it's frustrating. I got to run. Yeah, it's frustrating. We'll find out tomorrow. You can challenge any law up higher and higher. This could go all the way to the Supreme Court. Another email at Gilly at WTAM.com. Here's my prediction on what will probably happen. Somewhere around the 17th recount, Gore will get up by one vote and suddenly announce the true will of the people has been shown. And then rejecting any attempts of Bush to get another recount, stating he's trying to cheat his way into office. That's the way I feel about it. How many recounts do we need? Billy, you're on the big one.
Yeah, I have a little saying here. Maybe you can give me an answer to it. The saying is, he who casts the vote means nothing. He who counts the vote means everything. Who said it? I can.
Can you give me a clue?
What?
Can you give me a clue? Can you give me a time frame?
Well, it's a politician.
The politician is alive or dead?
Dead.
Did they live in the 1900s?
Yeah.
Okay. Boy. Let me think. Harry Truman.
No.
Was he a president? This is 20 questions. At one point, we'll have to flip all the cards.
He wasn't a president.
He was not a president. C.S.D. Kefauver.
Who?
C.S.D. Kefauver.
No.
Okay, I give up. Let's flip all the cards.
Joe Stalin.
Really?
Sure.
Well, to say things is one thing, and to go out and kill 20 million of your own people is another.
Of course.
I know that. I mean, Stalin, in a lot of regards, was worse than Hitler. And yet, for some reason, Hitler's held up as the worst. They were both awful, but Stalin killed, what, 20 million? The people just...
I don't know if they could count them.
So many people disappeared that you couldn't even count them all. They just up and disappeared. And, of course, both of them being awful people, but let's try to remember that Joe Stalin was no winner. There was no prize.
Well, this goes to show you that Al Gore is right behind him.
Okay, thanks. I don't know if Al Gore is that bad. I still say, in 2 months, Bubba's gone. And those of us who voted for George W., if it does not turn out the way that we wanted it to, well, sorry. We have to trust the process a little bit, don't we? We have to trust a little bit. Bernie, you're on WTAM 1100.
Yes, I want to talk about the presidential oath that Al Gore will be taking and ask your audience a question as to whether or not it will be in our best interest as a nation. First, however, I would like to return to the words of federal judge Susan Weber Wright when she found Bill Clinton in contempt. Quote, to deter others who might themselves consider emulating the President of the United States by engaging in misconduct that undermines the integrity of the judicial system. He admitted to that act and paid a $90,000 fine. Now, my question is, wasn't the behavior of Bill Clinton contrary to the standards of the Constitution, and wasn't it a violation of his presidential oath? And my answers would be yes to both. And yet, what did Al Gore see? What Al Gore saw was contributions, money. And the contributions were made to the President of the United States and the Democratic Party, undeterred by the standards of the Constitution.
But that depends on the definition of the word is.
Now the question can be asked, what will be the presidential oath of Al Gore? Won't he be taking one that's been paid for by the Democratic Party one that allows a contempt of court charge in a federal court and will not result in his requested resignation. However, one more point.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you're already assuming that Al Gore is going to be president.
There's another point here. There is a person that was supposed to be the controlling legal authority. That decision of not requesting the resignation of the president or resigning themselves was made by Al Gore, but it was also made by Attorney General Janet Reno. So she saw those contributions undeterred by the standards of the Constitution, and yet she did not recuse herself from making a decision about Al Gore's investigation for campaign contributions when it was suggested by two leading staff members in the Department of Justice, but also by the head of the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Well, I know it seems to all sort of make sense to us, but the whole world doesn't seem to make sense to... You know what I'm saying? I mean, if you look at what's written in the rule of law and then it flies in the face of what happened in reality, well, then I guess it is possible that Al Gore might be the next president, because I try to deal in facts and figures and common sense, and if you try to throw the intangible in, I mean, I thought Clinton was going to be kicked out of office.
And do you want Al Gore protecting our constitutional rights?
No. That's why I voted for George W.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome. Another email at Gilly@WTAM.com. Rick, ask yourself and have your listeners ask themselves these two questions. 1, why did Bush choose Cheney as his running mate? 2, why did Gore choose Lieberman as his running mate? Now, after you answer these questions, ask one more question. Which candidate truly loves his country? Signed, a Hinckley Patriot. Well, let's examine that. Why did Bush choose Cheney as his running mate? In my view, he's part of the old guard, right? Secretary of Defense under his father, a guy who knows what the hell he's doing, a common sense nuts and bolts guy who could get the job done. Why did Al Gore choose Lieberman as his running mate? To be truthful with you, I think that he thought it would help him get security as far as the Jewish vote, which of course probably helped a lot in retiree communities and areas in Miami-Dade County and in other counties in Florida, and also a heavy population of folks of Jewish descent in New York State, which is a state that must be carried. And I also think that he chose them because Lieberman was the man who spoke out loudly and clearly against Bill Clinton's actions. And I think that no matter what, and I'll ask you this question, Patriot and Hinckley, and I'll ask you if you're listening to this question. I think Al Gore is if this thing turns out, and it is, as close as it is this close, because I don't think a lot of people looked at Al Gore as that unlikable or unsavory of a character. But when you're the vice president under an unsavory character, who we would put up with and hold our nose only because the economy was going along so good, which, of course, the president has nothing to do with, I think that if Al Gore would have said something, which, of course, would have been very unpopular with President Clinton, but if he had spoken out and said something, but, of course, John Nance Garner, one of FDR's 3 vice presidents, said the vice presidency isn't worth a bucket of warm spit. So Al Gore and Tipper sat around in Blair House and played footsie and French kissed each other and in a loving, tender way that they have in their 30 years of marriage. And he didn't say anything, so he needed to get somebody to help distance him from the guy who's in there now, and yet he didn't say anything to try and distance himself from the guy who's in there now. So he looks like he's covered with slime too, and he is, because he did other things that were untoward. But that's partially why I think Al Gore chose Joe Lieberman as his running mate. I mean, obviously, you want to use the common sense thing. If you're a liberal type guy and you think you need the Jewish votes, I'm not saying anything anti-Semitic. It's the truth. He'd be our first Jewish vice president. Now, you'd hope there's not some fanatic out there that thinks, oh, well, only one gunshot and he could be our first Jewish president. I mean, it's just strange under the Clinton administration that we had Madeleine Albright. Let me get to the weather. Channel 3 weather from Marshall McPeak. Tonight, flurries possible, low 29, currently 37. We have Madeleine Albright, Secretary of State, going over there and trying to deal with folks in the Middle East. And we have to have a man go along with her because they won't talk to a woman. They don't want to have anything to do with a woman. Well, luckily, and I don't know who's Al Gore eventually going to choose. Has he chosen a cabinet? Do we have any idea who he's going to surround himself with? Are they capable people? Do we know? Can we take a wild guess as to who George W. is going to surround himself with? Names like Colin Powell. You trust that name? I think if Colin Powell would have run, he could have been our first black president. He's that popular. And he's already surrounded himself with Dick Cheney. And who else? Norman Schwarzkopf, maybe? In this changing world we live in, I think it's important that we always remember our military. It's what got us where we are now. Now, the military has been suffering over the last 8 years horribly. We need to change that. That's important, and I hope you remember that. If you voted for George W. Bush, pat yourself on the back. You're doing something good for our military, and that is truly more important than any kind of a tax cut.
The best of Mike Trivisonno.
Just spread the legs open and stuff it in.
Now available on compact disc at Best Buy.
Something you say on Thanksgiving.
From WTAM 1100.
Last year, Tommy was a second-string wrestler. Then he joined the Army National Guard as a junior in
The Mike Trivisonno Show.
I'm just laying on this billboard advertising baseball, basketball, and football and WTAM 1100. And the whole city of Bedford's like in an uproar.
It almost made me stop in my tracks.
What's wrong with that billboard?
They're just looking at him, Mike, like they're in a trance.
I did sit-ups. I worked out for that billboard.
The Mike Trivisonno Show.
You are catty corner from a Catholic church.
Is that same Catholic church that has Vegas night and bingo?
Weekdays at 3 on the big one.
They want to take Trivisonno off the street.
WTAM 1100. From WTAM 1100 Cleveland, Rick Gilmour.
I am back. There's a new caption contest on WTAM.com featuring Elvis and the Big One. Check that out. The winner will receive a pair of Browns tickets for the Eagles game on December 10th. Go to WTAM.com and enter. Joan in Cleveland Heights. You're on WTAM 1100.
Hi, Rick.
Howdy.
I'm just a mother of a Vietnam vet.
Uh-huh.
And I think it was a slap in the face for Clinton to go over there.
I was rather disgusted.
Oh, I mean, they're insulted.
It was obviously a photo opportunity and an opportunity to try and erase what bad things have happened during his presidency.
And there's so many boys that have committed suicide that came over from Vietnam that went over there. And the high divorce rate of boys, it's terrible. And then he goes over there and coddles them.
No, I know. It's just as bad as Hanoi Jane Fonda being recognized as one of the 100 most important women.
And I'm going to hang my flag upside down tomorrow.
Is Tokyo Rose one of the 100 most, in Access, what was her name, Access Sally? Are they included in the top most 100 women?
Well, I hope not.
Well, I would hope not, but if they're not included, then why is Hanoi Jane included?
Well...
People don't, they see her and she, gets...
Well, she can't keep a husband, so...
Well, at least she's aiming high. She's going for the dough.
Yeah.
Maybe he can't keep... Maybe Ted Turner couldn't keep a wife. Maybe he tried to colorize her or something.
But I think it's a good idea of hanging the flag upside down.
I think so as well.
And I love all of you boys. I'm a lot older. My husband fought in World War II.
God bless him.
And I said that we had one son in Vietnam. The other ones were too young. But if he had to go in the Army, he would happen to be able to get in the Coast Guard because his father was in the Coast Guard. So if he would have been drafted, I think I would have taken him to Canada.
Joan, I got to run, but hang that flag upside down. It's a way of showing protest when things are not right, and they're not right. They're not right.
Cleveland's only news radio. Your official weather station. The home of the Indians, Cavaliers, and Browns fans. This is the big one. Now, continuing coverage on News Radio, WTAM 1100, Cleveland.
Outrage in Columbus after yesterday's campus troubles. Good evening, I'm Cliff Bakley, and this is the 1030 report on News Radio, WTAM 1100. Details coming up. Channel 3 weather, here's Marshall McPeak.
Mostly cloudy tonight, a chance of flurries, the low 29.
Currently 37 degrees, the wind chill is 17 at your official weather station, News Radio, WTAM 1100. Ohio State University President William Kerwin says he's outraged by disturbances that erupted near the campus early this morning following Ohio State's loss to Michigan. The cops say at least 25 arrests were made and about 100 fires were set. The university plans to conduct an investigation to determine if any of the 25 people arrested were students. If so, Kerwin says he'll seek to